Picture this for a moment. You're driving to work, maybe you're already running late. Traffic is bad, coffee didn't help, and then it happens. That little orange light on your dashboard turns on. Your stomach drops, you already know what it means. Not exactly, but enough to be scared. You tell yourself, it's probably nothing, it can wait. You turn up the radio to drown out the sound the car definitely did not make yesterday. Because here's the real problem. You don't have the money to deal with it. You check your bank app at the next red light. $42. That's all you have until Friday. Logically, fixing the issue now might cost $300. Annoying, but manageable if you had it. But you don't, so you ignore it. Days pass, weeks pass. Every strange noise becomes something you learn to live with, until one morning, the car doesn't make it. It dies on the highway. Now you need a tow truck. That's $200. The original problem, the one you couldn't afford, has now destroyed something bigger. Transmission damage. Repair estimate, $2,000. And because you couldn't get to work, you missed 2 shifts. That's another $300 gone. What started as a $300 problem just turned into a $2,500 disaster. This isn't bad luck. This is math. This is the measurable, predictable cost of not having money. And it shows up everywhere. My name is Peter, and I spend an unhealthy amount of time thinking about the invisible mechanics of money, the quiet equations that keep people running harder every year without actually getting ahead. If you feel like you're doing everything you're supposed to do, but your bank balance never seems to move, or if you feel like one bad Tuesday could derail your entire financial year, make sure you subscribe, because today, we're not talking about investing tricks or side hustles or get-rich-quick nonsense. We're talking about something much more uncomfortable. Why being broke is actually the most expensive position you can be in. Here's where most financial advice completely misses the point. You've probably heard this before. Just be more disciplined. Cut the lattes, cancel Netflix. As if $12 a month is the thing standing between you and financial stability. That advice assumes the problem is behavior. But what if the problem is structural? What if the system itself charges you extra simply for not having money? There's a concept that explains this better than most economics textbooks. It's called the boots theory. And once you understand it, a lot of things you felt in your gut will finally make sense. The boots theory comes from a simple story. Not from a finance book, not from a business school, from a fictional character who understood something most people never stop to question. Here's how it works. Imagine 2 people. One has money, the other doesn't. The person with money buys a solid pair of boots. Good leather, well made. They cost $50. Those boots last 10 years. The person without money can't afford $50. They only have 10. So they buy the cheap boots. Thin soles, poor stitching. They last 1 winter. Next year, they buy another $10 pair, and the year after that, and the year after that. After 10 years, the person who couldn't afford the good boots has spent $100, twice as much, and they still have wet feet. The person with money spent $50 once, stayed dry, stayed comfortable. This isn't about boots. It's about how lack of money forces you into decisions that are more expensive over time. You're not paying less because you buy cheap. You're paying more because you had no choice. This is the poverty premium, and it shows up everywhere in modern life. Let's make it uncomfortably real. Take something boring, toilet paper. If you have $50 available, you go to a warehouse store. You buy the giant pack. The cost per roll is low. You don't think about toilet paper for months. But if you're living paycheck to paycheck, you don't have $50 to lock up. You have 4. So you go to the corner store. You buy the small pack. The cost per roll is 3 times higher. Same product, same paper. You're just paying more because you're broke. That's not bad budgeting. That's being priced out of efficiency. And when this happens once, it's annoying. When it happens every single week, it's devastating. Laundry detergent, diapers, paper towels, cleaning supplies. Bulk pricing is a privilege. If you don't have cash, your personal inflation rate is higher. You are literally paying more for the same life. And it doesn't stop at groceries. Let's talk about banks. If you have $10,000 sitting in your account, the bank treats you like a valued customer. No fees, no problems. Sometimes even perks. But if you're struggling, if your balance is low, one small mistake becomes a punishment. A subscription you forgot about clears for $25. You only had 20. You're now -5. The bank charges you $35. Think about that. You effectively borrowed $5 and paid $35 in interest. That's not a service, that's a penalty for being poor. And it happens millions of times a year. Not to people with money, to people who are already struggling. The system isn't neutral, it's reactive. It rewards stability and punishes instability. And once you see that, you start realizing something uncomfortable. You're not behind because you're irresponsible. You're behind because the rules are different when you have no margin. Now, let's talk about the part nobody wants to admit, because the cost of being broke isn't just financial, it's mental. When money is tight, your brain changes how it works. This isn't motivational talk, it's neuroscience. Researchers call it scarcity mindset. And when you are under real financial pressure, not hypothetical pressure, but actual, I don't know how I'm going to pay this pressure, your brain shifts into survival mode. Studies have shown that persistent financial stress can lower your functional IQ by around 13 points. That's the equivalent of losing an entire night of sleep. Think about that. You're not suddenly bad with money. You're not irresponsible. You're cognitively overloaded. Your mind is consumed by urgency. Rent, bills, gas, food. There's no mental space left for long-term planning. This is why people under financial stress make decisions that look irrational from the outside. They take the payday loan with insane interest. They pay the late fee instead of the full balance. They buy fast food instead of groceries. They focus on today because tomorrow feels abstract. It's not stupidity. It's bandwidth collapse. Now connect this back to the boots theory. The rich person doesn't just save money by buying the better boots. They save mental energy. They don't think about their shoes every day. They don't worry about replacing them next month. They don't spend time comparing cheap options over and over. That mental quiet compounds. They can think about investments, career moves, side projects, opportunities. The person without money is stuck managing friction. Every decision costs more effort. Every mistake costs more money. And that's where the trap tightens. Let's zoom out for a second. This isn't just about boots or groceries or bank fees. It's about time. If you have money, things are efficient. You order online, you buy in bulk. You fix problems early. If you don't have money, everything takes longer. You take the bus instead of driving. You go to multiple stores to compare prices. You wait on hold to negotiate fees. You spend hours solving problems that money would solve in minutes. Poverty doesn't just tax your wallet, it taxes your time, and time is future income. When your time gets stolen, your ability to improve your situation gets stolen with it. This is why it feels like you're running on a treadmill that never speeds up or slows down. You're always busy, always tired, always almost there, but never ahead. And here's the cruel part. The system profits from this. Late fees, convenience fees, interest overdrafts. These aren't accidents. They are predictable revenue streams built on human stress. Companies don't need you to fail completely. They just need you to stay slightly behind. Just stressed enough, just short enough, just busy enough not to escape. And once you see that, the story changes. Because the goal was never to shame you into discipline. The goal is to change the math. And the math only changes when you stop reacting and start building a buffer. Now let's talk about something people rarely include when they talk about money. Time. Because when you don't have money, you don't just pay more in dollars, you pay more in hours. Think about laundry. If you have a washer and dryer at home, laundry takes maybe 5 minutes of actual effort. You load it, you walk away. But if you don't, you go to a laundromat. That load costs $5 in quarters. But it also costs you 2 hours of your life. You have to travel there. Wait, sit, travel back. 2 hours you can't spend resting. 2 hours you can't spend learning a skill. 2 hours you can't spend with your family. If your time is worth even minimum wage, that load of laundry just became incredibly expensive. And this pattern repeats everywhere. If you live in a low-income area, you might not have a big grocery store nearby. You have a convenience store. Prices are higher, selection is worse. To get to the affordable store, you need transportation, bus fare, time, energy. Being poor adds friction to everything. Every task takes longer. Every decision requires more effort. Every mistake costs more. That friction compounds. And here's the part most people don't understand. Poverty doesn't just drain your bank account. It drains your cognitive bandwidth. When you are constantly worried about money, rent, food, bills, your brain goes into survival mode. Studies show that financial stress can reduce your effective IQ by more than 10 points. That's the equivalent of pulling an all-nighter. Your brain becomes short-term focused, not because you're careless, not because you're irresponsible, but because it's doing what it was designed to do. Survive today. This is why people in financial stress make decisions that look irrational from the outside. They take payday loans with brutal interest rates. They pay late fees instead of planning ahead. They choose fast food instead of cooking. Not because they don't know better, because thinking long-term requires mental space they don't have. The Boots theory isn't just about money, it's about mental freedom. The person with money doesn't just save cash, they save attention. They don't worry about the car starting. They don't panic about an overdraft. They don't spend hours comparing prices just to survive. That freed mental energy gets redirected, learning, planning, building. Meanwhile, the person without money is stuck in a loop of constant low-level anxiety, always reacting, never building, and this is why the gap keeps widening. Not because one group is smarter, but because one group is operating with more cognitive resources. Now let's zoom out. This isn't accidental. Entire industries are built around this imbalance. Late fees, overdraft charges, high-interest financing, disposable products. They rely on you being stressed. They rely on you being short-term focused. They rely on you being too overwhelmed to step back and see the pattern. Once you see it, it's unsettling, because you realize the system profits from keeping you busy, tired, and just broke enough. And that realization changes how you see everything. So here's the part most people never hear. The system depends on you not understanding this math. Late fees aren't accidents. Overdrafts aren't mistakes. High-interest loans aren't unfortunate side effects. Their business models, entire industries are built on the assumption that you'll stumble, that you'll be short, that you'll need convenience now and pay for it later. They expect you to buy the cheap version today, so you can buy it again next year. They expect you to focus on the monthly payment, so you don't notice the lifetime cost. Once you see this, something important changes. You stop blaming yourself for being bad with money, and you start asking better questions. Not, can I afford this right now, but how much will this cost me over time? Not what's the cheapest option, but what permanently solves this problem. That's how you start breaking the cycle. And here's the most important shift of all. The goal isn't to get rich first, the goal is to stop bleeding. Because if you're losing money through interest, fees, breakdowns, replacements, and emergencies, investing won't save you. An 8% return doesn't matter if you're leaking 20% everywhere else. Paying off a high-interest debt isn't boring, it's a guaranteed return. Fixing the small problem early isn't cautious, it's strategic. Buying the thing that lasts isn't a luxury, it's an exit. And this is why that first buffer matters so much. That first $1,000, not because it makes you rich, but because it changes how problems behave. A flat tire becomes annoying instead of catastrophic. A medical bill becomes uncomfortable instead of devastating. A broken appliance becomes a decision instead of a panic. Money doesn't just buy things, it buys time, it buys calm, it buys the ability to think. And when you can think clearly, you stop making survival decisions that sabotage your future. This part is hard to hear, but it's true. Getting from zero to stability is harder than anything that comes after. The effort feels unfair, the progress feels slow, the margin for error feels non-existent. But once you cross that line, once you have even a small buffer, the game changes. The same world that punished you before starts working differently. Suddenly, you qualify for better terms. Lower rates, fewer fees, not because you became smarter, but because you're no longer desperate. That's the real divide, not intelligence, not effort, liquidity. So if there's one actionable takeaway from all of this, it's this. Audit your life for poverty penalties. Find the places where you're paying extra simply because you don't have extra. Instead of spreading your energy thin, attack one penalty at a time. Fix the thing that keeps breaking. Pay off the debt that keeps compounding. Build the buffer that gives you breathing room. You're not trying to win the system overnight. You're trying to stop losing to it. One decision at a time. One problem solved permanently. One pair of boots that finally lasts. If this video helped you see your situation more clearly, share it with someone who feels stuck but can't explain why. and subscribe if you want more breakdowns that expose the invisible rules most people are forced to play by. Because once you understand the math, you stop running harder, and you finally start moving forward.